The morning sun was just starting to shine through the busy streets of West Hollywood when Keanu Reeves decided to stop by his favorite coffee shop. He had been going to Bean there for almost 3 years now, and it had become part of his daily routine. The small shop was nothing fancy, just a simple place with old wooden tables and chairs that had seen better days. But there was something special about it that kept bringing him back. Keanu parked his motorcycle outside and took off his helmet. He could see through the big window that the shop was already busy with the morning crowd. People in business suits were rushing in and out, grabbing their coffee before heading to work. The familiar smell of fresh coffee beans hit him as soon as he opened the door. Maria Santos, the owner, was behind the counter making drinks as fast as she could. She was a kind woman in her 40s who always had a smile for everyone. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore the same green apron she had been wearing since the day Keanu first met her. She looked up and waved at him when she saw him come in. "Good morning, Keanu," she called out over the noise of the coffee machine. "The usual?" "Yes, please," he replied with a smile. "Black coffee, no sugar." But as Keanu looked around the shop, he noticed something was different today. The usual happy feeling was gone. The music was playing softly in the background, but somehow the place felt sad. He could not put his finger on what was wrong, but something was not right. Then he saw Jake Martinez behind the counter. Jake was a young man, maybe 22 years old, who had been working at the shop for about 2 years. He was tall and thin, with dark hair that always looked a bit messy. Usually, Jake was full of energy and always joking around with the customers. But today, he looked completely different. Jake was trying to make a latte for a customer, but his hands were shaking. Keanu watched as the young man wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, trying to hide the fact that he had been crying. Jake's face was red, and his eyes were puffy. He kept looking toward the back office of the shop like he was worried about something. The customer in front of Jake was getting impatient. "Excuse me, can you hurry up with that latte?" the man said in an annoyed voice. "I'm already late for work." "Sorry, sir," Jake said quietly. "It will be ready in just a minute." His voice was shaky, and he almost dropped the cup he was holding. Keanu felt his heart go out to the young man. He'd always liked Jake. The kid was hardworking and always polite to everyone who came into the shop. He often talked about his family and how much he loved his little sister. Jake would show pictures of her drawings to regular customers, always proud of how talented she was. When it was finally Keanu's turn to order, he stepped up to the counter.
Wow.
Jake looked up at him with tired eyes and tried to force a smile. "Keanu," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Black coffee, right?" "That's right," Keanu said gently. He could see that Jake was struggling to hold back more tears. "Are you okay, Jake? You look upset?" Jake quickly looked away and started making the coffee. "I'm fine," he said, but his voice cracked as he spoke. "Just tired, you know? Long night." Keanu was not convinced. He had seen enough pain in his life to recognize it in others. Something was seriously wrong with Jake, and it was more than just being tired. The young man's whole body seemed to be carrying a heavy weight. "Here's your coffee," Jake said, handing over the cup. His hands were still shaking, and some of the coffee spilled onto the counter. "Thanks," Keanu said. He pulled out a $20 bill for the $3 coffee. "Keep the change." Jake looked surprised. "Keanu, this is too much. I can't take this." "Please, take it," Keanu insisted. "You look like you could use some kindness today." For a moment, Jake's eyes filled with tears again. He quickly turned away and pretended to be busy cleaning the coffee machine. "Thank you," he whispered, so quietly that Keanu almost did not hear him, instead of leaving like he usually did. Keanu decided to sit down at his favorite table in the corner of the shop. He pulled out a script he was supposed to be reading, but he could not focus on the words. His attention kept going back to Jake. The morning rush was starting to slow down. There were only a few customers left in the shop, and they were all sitting at tables with their laptops or newspapers. Maria had gone to the back office to do some paperwork, leaving Jake alone behind the counter. Keanu watched as Jake tried to clean up the coffee station. The young man kept stopping to wipe his eyes. At one point, he had to lean against the counter because his legs seemed too weak to hold him up. Whatever was bothering Jake was something big, something that was breaking his heart. A woman came up to order a cappuccino. Jake tried his best to serve her with a smile, but Keanu could see the pain behind his eyes. When the woman left, Jake stood alone behind the counter, staring at his phone. His face went pale as he read something on the screen, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. That was when Keanu made up his mind. He could not just sit there and watch this young man suffer in silence. Whatever was wrong, maybe he could help. He had learned over the years that sometimes all people needed was someone to listen to them, someone who cared enough to ask the right questions. Keanu closed his script and stood up. He walked back to the counter where Jake was standing. The shop was almost empty now, with just one other customer sitting by the window. "Jake," Keanu said softly, "I can see that something is really bothering you. You don't have to tell me what it is, but I want you to know that I'm here if you need someone to talk to." Jake looked up at him with surprise. For a moment it seemed like he might say something. His mouth opened as if he was going to speak, but then he closed it again and shook his head. "I appreciate that, Keanu, I really do," Jake said. "But I don't want to bother you with my problems. You probably have enough of your own." "Everyone has problems," Keanu replied, "but sometimes sharing them makes them a little easier to carry." Jake stood there for a long moment, looking like he was fighting a battle inside his head. His hands gripped the edge of the counter so tight that his knuckles turned white. Finally, he looked up at Keanu with eyes full of desperation and pain. Jake looked around the coffee shop to make sure no one else was listening. The last customer by the window was busy typing on his laptop with headphones on. Maria was still in the back office doing paperwork. It was just Jake and Keanu, and the weight of whatever Jake was carrying seemed too heavy for him to hold alone anymore. "I don't even know where to start," Jake said, his voice breaking. He put his hands over his face and took a deep breath. "Everything is falling apart, and I don't know what to do." Keanu moved closer to the counter. "Take your time," he said gently. "There's no rush." Jake wiped his eyes with a napkin and looked at Keanu. "It's my little sister," he said. "She's only 12 years old, and she's the best kid you could ever meet. Always drawing pictures and making everyone laugh. She wants to be an artist when she grows up." "I remember you showing me her drawings," Keanu said. "She's very talented." "Yeah, she is," Jake said with a sad smile. "But 3 weeks ago, she got really sick. At first we thought it was just the flu or something. She was tired all the time and had no energy to play or draw. My mom took her to the free clinic, and they said she probably just needed rest." Jake paused and looked down at his hands. They were still shaking, but she kept getting worse. She started losing weight and getting bruises all over her body. Strange bruises that came from nowhere. Her parents were scared, so they took her to the emergency room at the hospital. Keanu felt his stomach drop. He had a feeling he knew where this story was going, and it was not going to be good news. "The doctors did a lot of tests," Jake continued. "Blood tests, scans, all kinds of things. We had to wait for 3 days to get the results, and those were the longest 3 days of my life. Emma was so scared, and there was nothing I could do to help her." Jake stopped talking and stared at the coffee machine. His eyes filled with tears again, and for a moment Keanu thought he might not be able to continue. "What did the doctors say?" Keanu asked softly. "Leukemia," Jake whispered. "Emma has leukemia, cancer in her blood. The doctor used a lot of big words that I didn't understand. But the main thing I heard was that she needs treatment right away or she could die." The words hit Keanu like a punch to the chest. He had met Emma once when Jake brought her to the coffee shop on a Saturday morning. She was a bright, happy girl with big brown eyes and a smile that could light up the whole room. She had shown him a drawing she made of a superhero flying through the clouds, and she explained every detail with such excitement. "I'm so sorry, Jake," Keanu said. "That must have been terrible news for your whole family," Jake said, wiping his nose with his sleeve. "My mom cried for 2 days straight. My dad, he's usually so strong, but I saw him break down in the hospital parking lot. And Emma, she's trying to be brave, but I can see how scared she is." Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He showed Keanu a picture of Emma from last week. She was sitting in a hospital bed wearing a bright pink pajama top, but she looked so small and fragile. Her face was pale, and she had dark circles under her eyes, but she was still trying to smile for the camera. "She took this picture to show me she was okay," Jake said. "Even when she's going through all this, she's worried about making other people feel better. That's just the kind of person she is." Keanu looked at the picture and felt his heart break a little. "She looks like a fighter," he said. "She is," Jake agreed. "But fighting isn't enough. She needs chemotherapy, and maybe other treatments too. The doctor said it could take months or even years. And the worst part is, we don't have insurance that covers this kind of thing." This was what Keanu had been afraid of. He knew that medical bills in America could destroy families, especially families who were already struggling to make ends meet. "How much are we talking about?" Keanu asked. Jake laughed, but there was no happiness in it. "More money than my family will ever have." The doctors gave us some papers with numbers on them, but I couldn't even look at them for very long. It was like looking at a mountain that we could never climb. "What about payment plans or charity?" "Programs at the hospital. We tried," Jake said. "But there's a problem. My parents. They came here from Mexico 15 years ago. They work hard and pay taxes. But their papers, they're not legal. They're afraid that if they ask for too much help, someone might call immigration and they could get sent back to Mexico." Keanu felt anger rising in his chest, but not at Jake's family. He was angry at a system that could put a 12-year-old girl's life at risk because of paperwork and fear. "So what are you doing now?" Keanu asked. "I'm working as much as I can," Jake said. "I got a second job at a restaurant downtown. Work here in the morning, then I go there at night, sometimes. I work until 2 in the morning, then I'm back here at 6. Maria has been great about letting me pick up extra shifts. That's why you look so tired." "Yeah, but it's not enough. Even if I work every single day for the next year, I couldn't make enough money to pay for Emma's treatment. She doesn't have a year to wait. The doctors said she needs to start chemotherapy soon, or the cancer will get worse." Jake pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. It was a bill from the hospital. Even though Keanu couldn't see all the numbers, he could see that it was already in the thousands of dollars, and that was just for the tests they had done so far. "My dad is working 3 jobs now," Jake continued. "He cleans offices at night, works construction during the day, and does yard work on weekends. My mom is cleaning houses and taking care of other people's kids. We're all working as hard as we can, but it's like trying to fill up a swimming pool with a coffee cup." "What about Emma? Is she handling all this?" Jake's face softened a little. "She's amazing. Even when she's feeling sick from the treatments they've already started, she tries to make everyone else feel better. Yesterday she drew a picture of our whole family as superheroes. She made me into someone who could fly, and she said it was because I was always rushing around trying to save everyone." Jake showed Keanu another picture on his phone. This one was Emma's drawing, done in colored pencils. It showed 5 people, in superhero costumes, all holding hands and smiling. Even though it was just a child's drawing, Keanu could see the love and hope in every line. "She doesn't understand how bad things really are," Jake said. "She thinks everything is going to be okay, because that's what we keep telling her. But I'm not sure how much longer we can keep pretending. The hospital is already asking for money we don't have, and Emma needs more treatment soon." Keanu stood there, looking at this young man who was trying to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. Jake was barely more than a kid himself, but he was working 2 jobs and sacrificing everything to try to save his sister's life. Keanu left the coffee shop that morning with Jake's story heavy on his mind. He could not stop thinking about Emma, the 12-year-old girl who was fighting for her life while her family struggled to find a way to save her. As he rode his motorcycle through the busy streets of Los Angeles, all he could see was that picture of Emma in her hospital bed. Trying to smile, even though she was scared and sick, when he got home, Keanu sat in his kitchen and stared at his phone. He knew he had to do something, but he was not sure where to start. He had money. That was not the problem. The problem was figuring out how to help without making the Martinez family feel like they were taking charity. He knew from talking to Jake that they were proud people who worked hard for everything they had. After thinking for a while, Keanu decided to call his friend, Dr. Patricia Coleman. Patricia was one of the best cancer doctors in Los Angeles, and she worked at Cedar-Sinai Medical Center. Keanu had met her a few years ago at a charity event, and they had stayed in touch ever since. "Patricia, it's Keanu," he said when she answered her phone. "I hope I'm not bothering you, but I need to ask you about something important." "Of course, Keanu. What's going on?" Keanu told her about Emma's situation. He explained about the leukemia diagnosis and how the family could not afford the treatment she needed. He also told her about the family's immigration status and how afraid they were to ask for help. Patricia listened carefully without interrupting. When Keanu finished talking, she was quiet for a moment. "This is more common than you might think," she said finally. "I see families like this all the time. Good people who work hard, but can't afford medical care when their children get sick. It breaks my heart every day." "What kind of treatment would Emma need?" Keanu asked. "Without seeing her medical records, I can't say for sure," Patricia said. "But childhood leukemia is actually one of the cancers we have the most success treating. With the right chemotherapy, many children go into complete remission. Some might need a bone marrow transplant, but that depends on the specific type of leukemia she has. How much would all of that cost?" Patricia sighed. "It's expensive, Keanu. We're talking about maybe $100,000 to $200,000 or more, depending on how long the treatment takes and whether she needs a transplant. That's not including all the other costs like hospital stays and medications." Keanu felt his heart sink. Even though he had money, hearing the actual numbers made the situation feel more real and more urgent. "But here's the thing," Patricia continued. "If this little girl can get the treatment she needs, she has a very good chance of beating this. Childhood leukemia has a success rate of about 80 to 90% when treated properly. The tragedy is when kids can't get treatment because of money or immigration status. What if I wanted to help pay for her treatment? How would that work?" "There are ways to do it," Patricia said. "We have programs for families in exactly this situation. I could arrange for her to be transferred to our hospital and put her in our charity care program. If someone were to make a donation to cover her costs, it could all be done quietly." Keanu felt a spark of hope. "Could you look into this for me? I don't want the family to know I'm involved, at least not yet. I want to understand all the options first." "Absolutely. If you can get me her name and where she's currently being treated, I can make some calls and find out exactly what she needs." After Keanu hung up with Patricia, he called another friend. Alex Turner was an actor he had worked with on several movies, but more importantly, Alex spent a lot of his time working with children's charities. If anyone would know how to help a family like the Martinez family, it would be Alex. "Keanu, good to hear from you," Alex said when he answered. "What's up?" Keanu explained the situation again. Alex listened just like Patricia had, asking questions and taking notes. "This is exactly the kind of case that breaks my heart," Alex said. "I work with families like this through the Children's Hope Foundation. The hardest part is always the immigration issue. Families are so scared to ask for help because they think it might get them in trouble. Is there a way to help them without putting them at risk?" "Yes, definitely. We work with immigration lawyers who specialize in medical cases. There are actually protections for families when they have children with serious medical conditions. The key is connecting them with the right people who know how to navigate the system." Alex paused for a moment, and Keanu could hear him typing on his computer. "You know what, Keanu? I think we should visit this family. Not as celebrities trying to help, but as people who care about a sick child. Sometimes families need to see that the people offering help are real, that we're not just writing a check and walking away. Do you think they would be okay with that? From what you've told me about Jake, it sounds like he's desperate enough to accept help from anyone who offers it. And if we approach it the right way, we can make sure the family feels comfortable." Keanu agreed, and they made plans to visit the Martinez family that weekend. Alex said he would bring some information about legal help and medical programs, and Keanu said he would ask Jake for the family's address. The next morning, Keanu went back to being there. Jake was behind the counter again, and he looked even more tired than he had the day before. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his hands were shaking as he made coffee for the customers. When the morning rush was over, Keanu approached Jake again. "How is Emma doing?" he asked. Jake's face immediately showed worry. "Not good." She had to go back to the hospital yesterday because she had a fever. The doctor said that's normal with her condition, but it's scary every time it happens. Jake, I've been thinking about what you told me yesterday, Keanu said carefully. I have some friends who work with children's charities and medical programs. Would it be okay if they talk to your family about some options that might be available? Jake looked surprised. You mean like free programs? Possibly, yes. And also legal help to make sure your family doesn't have to worry about immigration issues while Emma is getting treatment. For the first time since Keanu had known him, Jake's face showed a little bit of hope. You would do that for us? Of course. No family should have to choose between getting medical care for their child and staying together. Jake was quiet for a moment, and Keanu could see he was trying not to cry again. My parents are very proud people, Jake said finally. They don't like to ask for help. But Emma is getting sicker, and we're running out of options. Maybe it's time to try something different. Would Saturday afternoon work for a visit? My friend Alex and I could come by and just talk to your family about what programs might be available. No pressure, no commitments, just information. Jake nodded. I think my parents would be willing to listen. Let me talk to them tonight and get back to you tomorrow. Perfect. And Jake? Try not to worry too much. There are more options available than you might think. That evening, Keanu sat in his living room making more phone calls. He talked to lawyers, doctors, and charity organizations. By the time he went to bed, he had a plan forming in his mind. It was going to take some work and some careful coordination, but he thought he could help Emma get the treatment she needed, while also protecting her family from any immigration problems. The most important thing was making sure the family felt comfortable accepting help. Keanu knew that pride was important, especially for people who had worked hard their whole lives to take care of themselves. He needed to find a way to help that would let the Martinez family keep their dignity while also giving Emma the chance to beat her cancer and grow up to be the artist she dreamed of becoming. Saturday afternoon came quickly, and Keanu found himself driving through East Los Angeles with Alex Turner in the passenger seat. They had spent the morning going over their plan and making sure they had all the information the Martinez family would need. Alex carried a folder full of papers about medical programs, legal help, and charity organizations that could assist families in their situation. The Martinez family lived in a small apartment, building on a quiet street lined with palm trees. The building was old, but well-maintained, with bright flowers planted and small gardens outside each unit. Keanu parked his car on the street, and he and Alex walked up to apartment number 12. Jake answered the door when they knocked. Nervous but hopeful, wearing his best shirt and jeans. Thank you so much for coming, he said, stepping aside to let them in. My parents are really grateful that you want to help. The apartment was small, but clean and filled with love. The walls were covered with Emma's artwork, colorful drawings of animals, flowers, and fantasy creatures. A small couch sat in front of an old television, and a round table in the corner served as both dining room and homework area. Everything was neat and organized, showing how much care the family took with their home despite having very little money. Carlos Martinez stood up from the couch when Keanu and Alex entered. He was a short, strong man with calloused hands that showed he worked with them for a living. His wife Linda sat beside him, a gentle woman with kind eyes who looked like she had been crying recently. Both parents looked worried and tired, but they welcomed their visitors with warm smiles. Please, sit down, Linda said in accented English, gesturing toward the couch. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee or water? Water would be great, thank you, Keanu said, wanting to make the family feel comfortable by accepting their hospitality. As Linda went to the kitchen, Carlos shook hands with both men. Jake told us you want to help our Emma, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. We don't know what to say. You're not used to asking for help from strangers. You're not asking, Alex said gently. We're offering. And you're not strangers anymore. Anyone who cares about Emma is family to us. Just then, a small voice came from the hallway. Mommy, who's here? Emma appeared in the doorway wearing bright pink pajamas and fuzzy slippers. She looked much smaller and more fragile than in the pictures Jake had shown them. Her skin was pale, and she moved slowly, but her eyes were still bright and curious. She carried a sketchbook and some colored pencils in her hands. "These are some friends who came to visit us," Linda said, returning with glasses of water. "This is Emma." Emma walked over to where Keanu and Alex were sitting. She was shy at first, staying close to her mother, but when she saw that both men were smiling at her, she became a little braver. "Are you famous?" she asked Keanu directly. "You look like someone I saw in a movie." Keanu laughed. I am in movies sometimes. But today, I'm just here as a friend who wants to meet you." "What kind of movies?" Emma asked, sitting down on the floor near the coffee table. "Action movies, mostly. Movies with lots of fighting and cars and motorcycles." Emma's eyes got wide. "Do you do your own stunts?" "Jake told me that some actors do their own stunts, and some don't." "I do some of them," Keanu said. "But the really dangerous ones, I let other people do those." Emma opened her sketchbook and showed him a drawing she had been working on. It was a picture of a motorcycle flying through the air over a city. "I drew this after Jake told me about action movies. Do you think it's good?" "I think it's amazing," Keanu said, and he meant it. Despite everything she was going through, Emma's artwork showed incredible imagination and talent. "You're a real artist. Want to be an artist when I grow up," Emma said proudly. "I want to draw pictures for movies and books and maybe even make my own comic books." Alex leaned forward and looked at the drawing. "This is professional level work, Emma. You have a real gift." While Emma showed them more of her drawings, the adults began to talk about more serious matters. Alex opened his folder and started explaining the different programs that might be able to help with Emma's medical costs. "There are several organizations that specifically help children with cancer," Alex said. "Some of them can cover the entire cost of treatment, and others can help with things like transportation to the hospital and temporary housing for families." Carlos listened carefully, asking questions in his careful English. "What do we need to apply for these programs?" "That's where it gets a little complicated," Alex said gently. "Some of these programs require legal documentation that your family might not have, but there's good news. I've been in touch with an immigration lawyer named Lisa Rodriguez who specializes in helping families in exactly your situation." Linda looked worried. "Will we get in trouble? We don't want to be sent back to Mexico while Emma is sick." "Actually, it's the opposite," Alex explained. "When a child has a serious medical condition, there are protections in place to make sure families can stay together and get the help they need. Ms. Rodriguez has handled hundreds of cases like yours. She knows exactly how to make sure your family is safe." Keanu had been watching Emma draw while the adults talked. She was working on a new picture, this one showing a family of superheroes. He could see that she had drawn her parents, Jake and herself, all wearing capes and masks. "Emma," Keanu said, "can you tell me about this picture?" "It's my family," she said proudly. "We're all superheroes. Daddy's power is that he can fix anything that's broken. Mommy can make anyone feel better when they're sad. Jake can run really fast to help people. My power is that I can draw anything and make it come to life." "What about the bad guys?" Keanu asked. "Who are the superheroes fighting?"
Emma's
face got serious for a moment. "The monster that lives in my blood," she said quietly. "But we're going to beat it because superheroes always win in the end." The room got very quiet. All the adults were looking at this brave little girl who was facing the biggest fight of her life, but still believed in happy endings. "You know what, Emma?" Keanu said. "I think you're right. Superheroes do always find a way to win." Carlos cleared his throat and looked at Keanu and Alex. "What would we need to do to get this help you're talking about?" "First, we'd arrange for Emma to be transferred to a better hospital with doctors who specialize in treating children with leukemia," Alex said. "Then we'd start the paperwork for the medical assistance programs and get you connected with the immigration lawyer." "And how much would all of this cost us?" Linda asked quietly. Keanu and Alex looked at each other. This was the moment they had been preparing for. "The legal help and most of the medical costs would be covered by the charity programs," Alex said. "There might be some small fees here and there, but nothing that would put a financial burden on your family." "Can't afford to pay much," Carlos said honestly. "We're already behind on rent because of the medical bills we've gotten so far." "You don't need to worry about that," Keanu said. "The most important thing is getting Emma the treatment she needs." Everything else, we can figure out. Emma looked up from her drawing. Does this mean I'll get better? She asked. Her mother reached down and brushed her hair back from her face. We're going to do everything we can to make sure you get better, Mia. And then I can go back to school and finish my comic book about the flying motorcycle? Yes, Keanu said, smiling at her. And maybe someday you can draw the motorcycles for my movies. Emma grinned, the first really big smile any of them had seen from her. That would be the best job ever. 3 months had passed since that Saturday afternoon visit to the Martinez family. Emma was now a patient at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center under Dr. Patricia Coleman's care, and the changes were remarkable. The little girl who had looked so pale and fragile in her pink pajamas was now sitting up in her hospital bed, working on a new drawing with more energy than she had shown in weeks. Look, Dr. Coleman, Emma said, holding up her latest artwork. I drew you as a superhero doctor with a magic stethoscope that can hear exactly what's wrong with people. Dr. Coleman smiled as she looked at the drawing. Emma had given her a bright blue cape and a mask with a heart on it. I love it, Emma. You make me look much more heroic than I really am. You are a hero, Emma said seriously. You're helping me fight the monster in my blood. That makes you a superhero for sure. The chemotherapy treatments had been working better than anyone had dared to hope. Emma's blood tests showed that the leukemia cells were disappearing, and her energy was slowly coming back. She still had months of treatment ahead of her, but Dr. Coleman was optimistic about her chances for a complete recovery. How are you feeling today? Coleman asked, checking Emma's chart. Pretty good. Still tired, but not as tired as before. And look, Emma said, pulling back her sleeve to show her arm. The bruises are almost gone. It was true. It's the mysterious bruises that had covered. Emma's body when she first got sick were fading away, replaced by healthy pink skin. Her appetite was coming back too, and she had even gained a few pounds in the past month. Down the hall from Emma's room, Dake was talking to Lisa Rodriguez, the immigration lawyer that Alex had connected them with. The news was good there too. Your family's case has been approved, Lisa said, smiling at Jake. You'll all be able to stay in the United States while Emma completes her treatment. And after that, we can start the process to help your parents become legal residents.
Jake
Felt like a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. For months, his family had lived in fear that they might be separated just when Emma needed them most. Now they could focus entirely on helping her get better. What do we need to do now? Jake asked. Just keep doing what you're doing, Lisa said. Take care of Emma, follow the doctor's instructions, and let me handle the paperwork. Your family has been through enough stress. You shouldn't have to worry about anything except Emma's health. Meanwhile, at Bean There Coffee Shop, Maria Santos was hanging up a new piece of artwork on the wall behind the counter. It was one of Emma's drawings, a colorful picture of people sitting around tables in a coffee shop, all of them smiling and holding steaming cups. Emma had given it to the shop as a thank you gift, and Maria had it professionally framed. It's beautiful, said Mrs. Chen, one of the regular customers. Who's the artist? Very special little girl, Maria said proudly. She's been coming to the shop with her big brother for years. She's fighting cancer right now, but she's going to beat it. Mrs. Chen looked more closely at the drawing. This is professional quality work. She has real talent. She does, Maria agreed. When she gets better, I think she's going to do amazing things with her art. The coffee shop had become something of a community center for people following Emma's progress. Regular customers would ask about her recovery, and many of them had contributed to a fund that Maria had started to help other families in similar situations. Word had spread through the neighborhood about the little girl who was fighting cancer. While continuing to create beautiful art, and people were inspired by her courage. Back at the hospital, Keanu was sitting in the children's activity room with Emma. She was teaching him how to draw better motorcycles, showing him techniques for making the wheels look round and the exhaust pipes look shiny. You're getting better, Emma said, looking at Keanu's latest attempt. But you need to make the handlebars more curved, like this. She took his pencil and added a few lines to his drawing. You're a good teacher, Keanu said. Maybe when you're older you can teach art classes, maybe. Or maybe I'll draw for movies like we talked about. Or maybe I'll write and draw my own comic books about superhero doctors and motorcycle riding heroes. Emma had been working on a special comic book project during her time in the hospital. It told the story of a family of superheroes who had to fight an invisible monster, but they won because they worked together and never gave up hope. The main character was a young artist who discovered that her drawings could come to life and help in the battle against the monster. "I want to show you something," Emma said, pulling out a folder from under her bed. "I've been working on this for you." She opened the folder and revealed a drawing that took Keanu's breath away. It was a portrait of him, but not as he appeared in movies. This was Keanu as Emma saw him, as a real-life superhero, wearing regular clothes, but with kind eyes and a gentle smile. At the bottom of the picture, in Emma's careful handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for saving my family." "Emma, this is incredible," Keanu said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Emma said. "You and Alex and Dr. Coleman and all the other people who helped us, you're all heroes. Real heroes don't wear capes. They just help people when they need it most." Carlos and Linda Martinez arrived at the hospital for their daily visit, carrying a small bag of Emma's favorite snacks. They looked different than they had 3 months ago. The constant worry was still there, but it was mixed with hope now. They could see their daughter getting stronger every day. They no longer had to fear losing their home or being separated from her. "How's our artist doing today?" Carlos asked, kissing Emma on the forehead. "Great, Papa. Look what I drew for Keanu." Emma showed her father the portrait. Carlos looked at the drawing and then at Keanu. "She captured you perfectly," he said. "Not just how you look, but who you are inside." Dr. Coleman came into the room carrying Emma's latest test results. "Oh, yes. I have good news," she announced. "Emma's blood work shows that the leukemia cells are almost completely gone. If this continues, we might be able to reduce her treatments soon." The room filled with excited voices as everyone celebrated the news. Emma hugged her parents, and Jake, who had just arrived from work, picked up his sister and spun her around carefully. "Does this mean I can go home soon?" Emma asked. "It's not quite yet, Doctor," Coleman said. "We need to make sure the cancer is completely gone and that your body is strong enough. But yes, I think you'll be going home in a few more weeks." Emma looked around the room at all the people who had become her extended family over the past few months. "When I go home, I want to have a party. Not a party for me getting better, but a party to say thank you to everyone who helped me fight the monster." "That sounds like a perfect idea," Keanu said, as the sun set outside the hospital window. Emma sat at her little table working on yet another drawing. This one showed all of her heroes standing together. Doctors and actors and lawyers and coffee shop owners, all of them holding hands and smiling. At the center of the picture was a little girl with a big smile and a paintbrush in her hand. No longer fighting a monster, but creating something beautiful instead. The drawing was titled, "My Real-Life Superheroes," and it would soon join the others hanging on the wall of Bean Their Coffee Shop, reminding everyone who saw it that sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin with the simplest act of kindness from one person who chooses to care about another.